Welcome to Leaving a Legacy, Navigating Estate Planning with Rose Harper Law.
Hello, and welcome back to Leaving a Legacy, Navigating Estate Planning with Rose Harper Law. Rose is the founding attorney of Rose Harper Law, where she helps families protect what matters most through estate planning. I'm Chelsea Reynolds, and today we're talking about how you can leave a legacy that goes beyond your family. Welcome back, Rose.
Thank you so much for having me. Always enjoy discussing estate planning.
Well, why do so many people often consider charitable giving as part of their estate plan?
People will consider charitable giving, there's a mix. Some of it's emotional and then some of it's financial reasons. So on the emotional side, maybe they have been involved in a charity their whole life. They feel compelled that that's a part of an important part of the legacy that they want to leave behind is still giving to that charity and making a positive impact on their community. And, it's an important way to kind of give to something that was meaningful during your lifetime. Maybe you're giving to a hospital, a university, a community organization, something like that. But on the financial side, a charitable gift can be a really powerful tool to reduce or eliminate, estate or inheritance taxes, depending on your state, and allowing you to pass on more of your wealth to your heirs, actually, because
Hmm.
by reducing that tax burden.
Wow, it's a win-win.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the most common ways to include charitable gifts in a will or in a trust?
Yeah, so the most common way to do that, you could be fancy and call it a bequest, that you're essentially giving to the charity within either your will or your trust. It's basically just a gift with a specific amount or a percentage of your estate, like a specific asset, a piece of real estate or art, maybe a share of stocks that you're giving to a charitable organization. So, for example, you could say, I'm giving 10% of my estate to the American Red Cross, or I'm giving my antique car to the local historical society. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. Just depends on what type of asset you're trying to give and what type of planning you're doing. So your will versus your trust. But yeah, it's definitely a good way to pass along your assets directly to the charity. That way it avoids, probate if you put it in your trust. And then also you can avoid taxes depending on the size of your estate.
Can you explain what a charitable trust is and when it would make sense to establish one?
Yeah, so a charitable trust specifically, it's a little bit more sophisticated legal tool that allows you to manage your assets both for your families and the charity's benefit. So there's two main types: the charitable remainder trust and the charitable lead trust. So the charitable remainder trust, allows you to donate assets to a trust and receive income from those assets for a period of time, either during your lifetime or for a set number of years. And then when the trust term ends, the remaining assets go to the charity. This is great for someone who wants to make a large charitable gift, but also needs a steady stream of income for themselves or their family. And the charitable lead trust kind of works in reverse. So it provides an income stream to the charity for a set period of time, and then the remaining assets get transferred to your family. So this can be an effective way to pass on significant wealth to your heirs with a reduced or eliminated, gift or estate tax.
And you touched on some of the potential tax benefits already. What would those tax benefits of leaving money or property to a nonprofit organization be?
Yeah, so, like, tax, really, you need someone in your state. So, like, even with New York and New Jersey, it's so different, like, depending on the state that you live in. So and it also depends on the types of assets you have, how they're owned. So, if they're titled in a certain way, you can do lifetime giving, which is kinda like what we're touching on here, but you can also do other things for lifetime giving to reduce your tax burden. You have, federal tax issues plus state tax issues. So I feel like tax could almost be its own separate like episode to get really specific about it. But essentially, if you are concerned about, estate tax or inheritance tax or capital gains tax, like if you bought real estate 20 years ago and now it's worth significantly more and you want to find out like how can you avoid, having that capital gains tax, come out of your estate, that's something you can certainly plan for. So all of these things are really important considerations, and that's why going to someone and really also telling them like all of your assets, because sometimes I have people come to me and like I have an intake form. It's pretty lengthy. And, people kind of like gripe about it. But the thing is that if I don't really fully understand, your assets and how you own them and where they're located, it's really hard for me to give you the best advice possible. So just really and then other people come like they already have their financial advisor, they have their whole, spreadsheet, they send me everything. It's like, a lot of prep, but it's fine. Like, I'd rather know that way you can have a more productive conversation about things like this, like, certain tax aspects. But it's tax is really interesting because even in New Jersey, like there's different classes of people depending on who's inheriting. So like if you're giving to your friend versus if you're giving to your child, right? So
Hmm.
there's different tax considerations there. And then who's responsible for that tax? Are they paying it? Is your trust paying it? But yeah, so it can get really, really intricate, but certainly something to consider. I would say if your parent, for example, has owned their home for a long period of time and capital gains tax is something you're concerned about, make sure they're not just trying to add you to the deed of the property. You wanna consult an estate planning attorney, maybe get a trust put into place, and that's the way you transfer that real estate asset. So, very, very important to get your planning done, make sure it's comprehensive, make sure all of these, factors are being considered.
How can somebody structure their estate plan so that both their family and a charity of their choice are provided for?
So, one of, like, the most common ways to do that is to use a residual bequest. So, you can give specific gifts or percentages of your estate to your family members first, and then you could give, like, the rest and remainder, or the residual could go to a charity. So, that ensures that your loved ones are definitely taken care of first, and then the charity just gets, like, a small amount left over. Another popular option is to have the charity as a contingent beneficiary. So, basically, if your loved ones, if there's no one alive to inherit it, that sounds wild. The charity would essentially be like the backup contingent beneficiary.
Wow. Are there any differences between making a singular gift through a will and then setting up something long term like a foundation or an endowment?
Yes. So there's definitely that's a big question. So there's definitely, major differences in terms of control, involvement, longevity. So a singular gift is a one-time donation through your will or your trust. So it's just a gift, and your role is complete. The gift is given and it's simple, it's effective. You gave the gift, that's it. In contrast, setting up a private foundation or contributing to an endowment, it's about creating a long term legacy. So, a private foundation is usually a separate entity that you fund or your family members fund, and can be involved in managing the assets and deciding which charities are going to be receiving grants for generations to come. And an endowment is similar, but the money is given in like an institution. So, usually a university or hospital with an agreement that the principal will be invested and only the income will be used, something like that. But this allows the gift to support the organization's work, ongoing.
Can you set up a foundation or endowment while you're still alive? Like be a part
Yeah.
of the planning? Okay. It's
Yeah.
interesting. What mistakes have you seen people make when they're trying to leave charitable gifts without proper planning?
So one of the biggest mistakes is like a lack of specificity.
Mm.
People might simply write, to the local humane society, but there might be 10 different local humane societies in the area with similar names. So it's crucial to have the charity's full legal name, their tax ID number, and another, mistake, is failing to coordinate that charitable gift with other parts of your estate plan. So, if you have one document that says you're leaving your entire estate to your children, but then there's, another account that says it's going straight to charity, that can lead to an issue. So, what's supposed to happen? And then another common error is not informing the charity of the gift. So, you're not required to do that, but it's helpful for the organization to be aware that there is a planned gift, so they can ensure that their records are accurate. But, I wouldn't do that if there's a chance you're gonna change your estate plan
Mm.
in the future. So,
False hope. Do you have any examples of how a charitable giving has made a meaningful impact for your clients or for their families?
sometimes I've had clients come to me and maybe they don't have any children and, they really feel passionately about a certain charity and they want to make sure that that charity receives the donation over a period of time. They're really thoughtful and specific about how they want their assets to be distributed and used. And that's really wonderful because that charity is really helping the community, the local community. So even though they didn't have children of their own, they're really providing that long-term benefit to their local community. And it's their life's work. So, I think it's great to have that plan into place and that you're going to have that lasting impact versus, not getting a plan into place and then letting the state decide what happens, with your assets, that you worked your whole life for. I think it's better to, you work so hard for this and you feel connected to a certain charity or community or mission. So you should, get that into place to secure your legacy.
For somebody who's thinking about leaving a charitable legacy, what would be the first step they should take in their estate planning process?
I would say the first thing is to, define your goals. So sit down and think about like what is important to you. So what organizations, causes, or communities do you want to support? And then once you have a clear idea of that, then you can consult with a estate planning attorney, financial advisor. Usually, like when people have very large estates and they want to put together these types of trusts that give to charity, we'll have like a think tank meeting. So you kind of have, I'll meet with a financial advisor so that I really understand like where the assets are located, how much they are, what we think is going to be the long term, impact. And that way I can properly put a plan together that, really benefits the charity of their choice or multiple charities. That way we're all on the same page and everyone knows, what the plan is.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Leaving a Legacy Navigating Estate Planning with Rose Harper Law. If you'd like help creating an estate plan that protects your family and supports the causes that you care about, visit roseharperlaw.com. And don't forget, like, subscribe, and leave a review if you found today's episode helpful. Thanks again, Rose.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.